Welcome to Mount Grey Homestead. I'm Gary Fleming. This property has been in my family for 4 generations now. Since about 1915 my great-grandfather bought the property. It's only 100 hectares now. It's been divided up and handed down and divided up just through the generations. It's we're at about 20 k's away from Rangiora on the edge of Ashley Forest, and the Kauai River is the south branch of the Kauai River is our northern boundary. We're quite lucky. We've got 3 different soil types: heavy clays on the upper levels, silts on the middle ones, and light shingle down by the river flats, so we can farm accordingly to that. We have about 150 hybrid hinds and about 600 breeding ewes. Just a bit of an overview of the farm. You can see out down here, we're standing on the heavier clay soil at the moment, and we're looking down onto the heavy silts and loam soils down here. And then further on, you can't quite see because of the trees and things, there's river flats where it's a lot drier and really good for winter feeding out of animals. So I've got over 650 different species of trees and shrubs planted around here, mainly for shelter and timber production. Try to get as much biodiversity as possible around the place. And being very lucky, having 3 different soil types, I can mix and match different species to different soil types. And we have a lot of waste area, a lot of areas that used to only grow gorse and broom are now all in productive trees. We're all mainly north facing, so we have some quite warmer areas where we can grow plants that places on the flats can't grow because of frost damage. We get a lot of frost drainage on these hillsides. We have a lot of steep gullies which are well protected, and the rainfall here is about 750 to 800 millimetres, so it's a bit more than the likes of Christchurch. So we're in more of the foothills sort of rainfall area. So yep, we have mainly shelter species on the flats to try and stop the nor'west, and for southerly shelter for lambing, and then on these steep escarpments where they have mainly in pines at the moment. They used to always just grow gorse and broom, and now they are in pine trees, and it provides good shelter for all those lower flats that you can see down there. Okay, these are Sapul leylands, a variety of leyland cypress. Similar to Leighton Green, a more common one, but these don't produce quite as many big branches as Leighton Green. A little bit more canker resistant. So they're growing for timber. It's a single row shelter belt with a shelter species underneath. It's Garcia. It's a leguminous shrub. It'll only grow about another half to another metre taller. And the deer graze the Garcia through the wire. So if we want them to graze it more, we just turn the electric fence off, which it has been turned off during this winter, and I've actually just grazed it back a bit, so that's why it's looking a bit bare at the bottom. And then if it gets too grazed, we just turn the electric fence back on, and they stop grazing it, and it all grows back out to the fence. It's a really good shelter. The deer like lots of different sort of things other than ryegrass and white clover. They enjoy a lot of trees and shrubs. We cut down a lot of trees and drag them in here, as you can see from the branches. They get a lot of different secondary compounds from the trees and shrubs that we feed them. And the pine trees need pruning anyway, so it's just a matter of picking up the branches, and so we prune the pine trees for timber and then pick up the branches and bring them in here, and the deer clean them up. Okay, these are Eucalyptus fastigata. Of the ash group, they are considered to be one of the better soaring ones. They don't look pretty for a start. They go through a bit of a bushy stage, and then they start to produce a quite nice trunk. I was actually quite pleased with these. I was nearly going to write them off when they were younger. I'm pleased I didn't, but they certainly change. They go through this really bushy, ugly duckling stage. Okay, I'm a member of the North Canterbury Farm Forestry Association. I've been a member now for probably about 20 years, but I've only been actively a member for about the last 10 years. We get to go on a lot of field days all around the countryside, get to places that you'd never ever see anywhere else, go onto properties that you wouldn't normally be allowed on. The information sharing on groups like that is just phenomenal. always learning about what works for people, what doesn't work for people, and the members of North Canterbury, so it's in our area that some things will grow well and some things don't, and so it's quite good having a pool of knowledge about trees and shelter and fodder and all sorts of things that are related to trees. That pool of knowledge from the North Canterbury area. Other areas have their own sort of pools of knowledge as well, but the farm forestry has been a very enjoyable association for me to belong to. I've certainly learnt a lot from belonging to an organisation like that. Alright. Okay, this paddock here is just a flat. It used to be extremely exposed. Because we're a cropping farm, we used to work these paddocks up, and they used to get a lot of soil erosion, a lot of wind blow. The nor'west used to come straight across here and blow all the soil away. So we planted those pine trees. This is another 30 metres steep drop over. They were about 19 years old. They have been really good shelter. That was 100% gorse on that hillside, and the gorse only provides shelter about sort of 1.5 metres, 2 metres tall. It didn't really shelter this paddock very much, and it's certainly unproductive. So they're now all very well pruned trees there. And because of the extra shelter we've had gathered around here, you've noticed the soil, especially on the bit of the hill down there, it's actually improved a lot. We were never able to cultivate the hillside down here because it was just too dry and stony all the time. But the soil has actually improved in the last 20 years since the pine trees have been there. Anybody young, I think it's always going to be tough to find the money to fence off and plant trees, but it's definitely well worth it in the long run. But yes, you have to make sure that the trees are well fenced, and you have to try and carry that cost of planting and pruning and fencing right through the rotation, which is always a wee bit tough. But you just have to do with some sacrifices every now and again to try and get those established. You'll find that in the short term your production will increase with the extra shelter and shade. Animals will do better. They're not sitting out in the sun all the time. They're not in the cold southerly winds, and so they'll produce more. So in the short term you do get a benefit from the trees, even though you're not getting any direct costs coming from the trees as in timber for another 25 to 30 years. Well, these macrocarpa here are 19 years old, and they're just not only 100 metres away from the shearing shed. If it comes up really cold and we've just shorn sheep and we don't have enough room for them all in the covered in sheep yards, then we can send them out here and they can be really well protected from any cold wind and everything. They get underneath these trees, and it's very good shelter from them. And so it's just not far away from the shearing shed, so it's been really good that way for putting sheep in a cold situation. And hopefully these will produce some good timber eventually. Well, these covered sheep yards, the outside sheep yards, the hay shed and a deer shed have all been built out of our own timbers. Makes it a lot cheaper if you can only have to get the timber sawn and treated rather than have to buy it as well. And when we did all the deer fencing, all our own deer posts were all our own trees, so that makes it a lot cheaper too. So we've used a lot of our own timber on this property. You can start planting trees. The earlier you can get the benefits from them. Hopefully a lot of these trees that I've planted, I'll be able to harvest them and then hopefully get maybe even a second rotation for my retirement. A lot of people won't be able to do that. They'll be planting them now for their retirement if they plant them now. So I was just very fortunate in being able to start quite early in planting trees, having a family farm. But yeah, it has been a lot of hard work and quite a bit of expense up till now, but I think it's going to be well worth it in the long run.